Hello and welcome to episode 20 of 50 Women Over 50, a podcast for women whose personal confidence is born of experience. I'm your host, Sherrilynne Starkie. My ambition for this podcast is to interview 50 women from all walks of life who are over 50 years of age about what they've learned by this decade so that we can all learn from them. Today, I'm welcoming to the show Marjorie Turner Hollman, who celebrated turning 50 by getting married to a younger man. She has written 4 best-selling Easy Walk books and has recently released her 5th book, Personal Memoir. Since life-saving surgery left her paralyzed down her right side almost 30 years ago, she's been on a healing journey, which included walking outdoor trails throughout New England. Her books focus on helping others, especially those with mobility challenges, to get outside and enjoy the great outdoors.
My 50th birthday, I got married. I know. I'd been a single parent for 20 years, divorced at 30. Yes, I got married when I was 50. And my husband is quite a bit younger than me, so it was a shock to his system too, but we're 17 years later doing well. So that was my 50th. I had a surprise party for my 49th birthday.
Okay.
That friends didn't want to wait till I was 50. And so that was really very sweet. I don't know that I'd ever had a surprise party thrown for me.
Well, I like to drill down on the marriage at 50 thing because I haven't had anyone on the show yet that got married at this stage of life. And I think that it's an interesting juxtaposition because a lot of us, me, myself included, which is why I'm doing this show, I was very fearful of going into my 50s because I thought that's it. I'll be over the hill. Yet here you are getting married and starting a new life with someone else. So
yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to get married and a little bit about your wedding day?
Sure. We had 3 weddings. So it was a little over the top. I met my husband contra dancing in my 30s. I had brain surgery to save my life that left my right side paralyzed. I've been healed in a substantial way. I'm able to walk on trails with support. I use hiking poles.
Right.
Got back to contra dancing, which I had done before I became ill. And with support, again, it's a lot of supported dancing, kind of like square dancing, a lot of upper body support. And got back to that pretty quickly. And I was at a contra dance when my now husband, asked me to dance. And he was saying, well, I have a bad back. And I said, well, I've got a story too. And he turned out to be the best dancer in the hall. And we went from there. That's how we met.
Okay.
And so the wedding 2 years later, after we'd spent lots of time, him taking me outdoors, he's a real outdoor person. He discovered how challenging it is for me to be on trails and with effort persuaded me to use hiking poles. I resist change a lot. I still resist change, but he persuaded me and a lot more kept opening up to me as I became more comfortable using that. We just went every weekend out somewhere. I actually was hoping it would rain sometimes so I could get a little rest. And then we decided to get married, and we're in New England.
Yes.
For many reasons, I had been previously married. I have 2 children who are now grown, and many reasons we did not get married in a church. We got married to Justice of the Peace, where my daughter was working at town hall, and she walked down the hall and joined us. A couple very close friends joined us, and my husband's parents got there and his siblings got there. And so that left out my family basically other than my daughter, and my father was in Florida. We flew down the next day and had a second ceremony with him, and both of my kids and spouses joined us for that. Then we flew home, and a couple of weeks later, we did our potluck. We had our 3rd, the celebration.
How wonderful.
We just looked at each other and said, well, I guess it better stick. And it has. It has.
Yeah. So not married once, but thrice in your 50s. Well done.
That a little crazy, but it worked.
So, wow, like that just puts a whole different context around the other questions I had planned to ask you.
Well,
like, what surprised you most about life in your 50s?
Right. I had spent 20 years convinced that there would never be the possibility of a mutual relationship. I always felt like I cared more and did all the work. And when I met my husband, I really had decided I just can't work that hard. And that if it's not going to be mutual, it's just not worth the effort. And he actually is the one who said, would you please call me? And here's my phone number. I don't want to lose you.
And we're recording this show today on Valentine's Day. What do you celebrate?
Today? It's another day for us at this point. Every day is Valentine's Day for me. I'm very, very lucky. And I don't want to idealize that because there are certainly challenges that just because you're married doesn't mean you don't feel lonely. That's a misconception. There's certainly times that are still very hard. There's certainly times that we don't see eye to eye and are frustrated or just wish we could change something. And there's still loneliness. There's no escape from that sometimes. I need more sociability. Me, in my own life, I've lived a life of disability and illness for the last 30 plus years. So I have been very isolated in many ways. And the pandemic actually opened things up that I could get places that otherwise physically were unattainable to me. It made it so that I could have close interactions with people around the world. So for those of us who have lived a disabled life, online world has actually opened possibilities up that the rest of the world was shocked and, oh, we're so shut down. But I'd already lived a quite isolated life in many ways. Right. So it wasn't that different.
Tell me how your disability, what happened? Was there an accident?
No, I had a grand mal seizure, was quickly diagnosed with a meningioma. It's pretty specific to women. It's a benign brain tumor by its nature. It's not cancerous, but for me, it was in a very, very bad place. And the surgery took 12 hours. Everyone was surprised when I woke up totally paralyzed on my right side.
Right.
So that was a big shock. But no, it was the surgery to save my life is how I describe it. But it left me unable to walk, unable to work. All the things that I'd been doing to take care of my kids and my family. Kids were 10 and 14.
How old were you when this happened?
I was 37.
Okay. And you were the custodial parent?
Yes.
So how did that work?
My kids kept me going.
Okay.
My kids kept me going because the first 2 years, the seizures were uncontrolled and I was ignored, which is another medical story. Many people, especially women, are told that it's in your head. I was told I was depressed, put on antidepressants, and I kept having these weird things. And I finally, with some help of a counselor, when she said, I think you should tell your doctors, and gave me the language. And they said, oh, yeah, those are seizures. And then I started getting help with appropriate medication.
So how did you look after and support your children?
I applied for Social Security disability. That took 2 years. That's very standard. So I had no income other than family stepped forward and gave me money. But I went on to AFDC, welfare, whatever. So I learned the humility of being a welfare mom. After I'd had all this pride of paying every penny that I earned, I reported and paid taxes on. I was a very proud person. And this put me in a very different place that I learned the welfare system and how impossible it is. Nobody can survive on that. I was living on $5,000 a year.
Oh, jeepers.
It was very humbling.
Yes.
I learned from all the things that I did, how to ask for help and to let go of the shame of asking for help, because we all need help at some time or other in our lives. We all do. No one is born alone. We all need help to be born. We all need help as children. We need help as adults. Just, we overlook or ignore all the ways we're helped. We're interdependent, and we ignore that at our peril.
Totally agree with you. I too was a single mother and definitely depended on the help and support of others, including social services when I was a young mother. So I totally hear you on this. You're 100% right. And it is humbling having to ask for help and having to accept help. Asking for it was one thing, but actually accepting it, I feel like that's kind of a separate issue.
It's a whole power issue.
Yeah, that's right.
When you're the one giving, you feel like you have this wonderful helping. We love to be helpers, but it's a power position, and being able to accept help gracefully is not only difficult. Again, it's humbling. We all have something to give, no matter where our place in life is.
Yeah.
And it's reciprocal. And to see giving as the power position, not receiving, because people who give need to have someone who welcomes the gifts they give.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It works both
interesting
ways.
Perspective. Yes. I hadn't really ever thought about it that way.
I had a lot of chance to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, I was lucky that it was only a short time in my life I managed to turn things around, but I'm glad that I went through that. It certainly is a big part of who I am today, but I wouldn't want to do it again. That's for sure.
No.
It was hard.
No. I was able to learn how to navigate the healthcare system as well. There wasn't Obamacare, but I learned how to navigate that. And when I was able to drive and start working part-time, the job I found was helping young families. And part of that was helping them navigate getting on. In Massachusetts, it's called Mass Health.
Yes.
I knew how to do that.
Right.
And it made sense of all the hard things because I knew how they were feeling. And I was able to not have a superior feeling, but a compassion feeling and a respect.
Yes.
Feel.
Been in their shoes.
Exactly.
So tell me about your journey into becoming an author.
I avoided writing like the plague. I really was not a confident writer at all. I started writing emails back when emails were a big thing and not many people were getting many. And so I would write emails, just stories of my kids, stories of my wonderful neighbors, and people would write me back and say, "Oh, I wish I lived in your neighborhood." But because they were emails, the stress or the pressure to be perfect was let go.
Right.
And so I just wrote these little stories. But in the midst of writing those, I also started writing about what it was like in the process of healing or in the process of uncertainty about healing. And I saved those because my latest book is a memoir, those short essays and others that I wrote. And that's why I say Reclaiming Hope in a World Turned Upside Down. My Liturgy of Easy Walks is the title. So they're just little meditations on learning to live with a changed life. That's how I got started. I contacted a newspaper editor and she mentored me in writing articles. And that was a huge discipline to write monthly articles. And she mentored me and coached me on how to write clearly. And I've been practicing that 25 years.
Was that the Christian Science Monitor?
That was one of my very first published articles. Yes. I got published in other newspapers and then other publications, regional, state, national, and some international publications. I just kept my ear open and found that. So the books came from newspaper articles that I wrote of local trails, and people kept coming to my website where I had posted those articles. And it finally dawned on me, I was getting a lot of traffic just to those specific articles. And I said, I think there's a need. I know how to self-publish from my other work as a personal historian, helping families self-publish their stories. I said, I think I might be able to meet that need, and started doing the research. Because I have to use hiking poles, I could only do easy walks. And those are the ones that ended up in my books.
What's a typical walk for you in terms of miles or minutes?
I can't go terribly far. I walk up to about 2 hours, but that's stopping and resting sometimes. And my right foot still has paralysis, so I can walk 2.5 miles is about the extent. It's hard pavement, probably shorter. And if it's hot weather.
I tell you what, that sounds like my kind of a walk. My husband's always dragging me up the mountain somewhere, and I'm like, I don't want to be in this.
Easy Walks. I have a Facebook page that is Easy Walks, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and beyond. And 13,000 people are in that group.
Oh, wow.
And it's not all people with disabilities. They're older people. They're people recently injured. They're families with young children and strollers. They're all looking for places that have not too many roots, not too many rocks, relatively level, not flat, with something of interest. That's an easy walk.
How many walking books have you published?
In the Easy Walk series, my memoir is basically the backstory of all the other 4. So there's 5 books in the Easy Walk series.
And when is your memoir coming out? I know that it's out, but
it's out.
You have a second edition coming out, right?
It's out. It's my Liturgy of Easy Walks, Reclaiming Hope in a World Turned Upside Down. And it's on Amazon.
Right. So looking back now on your life in your 30s, what advice would you give yourself knowing what you know today?
It gets better.
Yeah.
It gets better. It's so hard, especially at that age, to picture yourself in anything other than where you are. In fact, it's really pretty tempting still to the days that feel good. That's how I'm always going to feel. The days that you feel low or in pain or just sick, you'd say that nothing's going to change. Things will change. I can't promise you how, but your life will change.
Yes. I think that when we're in our 30s, we're so busy. I don't know, like I keep thinking about the analogy of a hamster wheel. You're just so busy doing it that you don't really stop to look at the horizon very much, I don't think, because you're just in the cut and thrust of trying to get it all done. But I was thinking about this over the weekend. Like, I feel like I've spent my whole life on my way to somewhere else, but now I'm here. And I finally arrived. And it took a long time to get here, but it's a pretty happy place where I am.
Oh, I'm glad. Being busy is a real temptation to feel important. And if you're not,
you're right on the money with that one.
If you're not busy, then you must not be important. And I think it's self-deception, because I am surrounded by people who are always busy. And because of my health stuff, I can't be too busy. The consequences are severe.
Right.
So I move at about the speed of a turtle. And that's been my life the last 30 years. Frustrating for sure. Envying people who have all these important things to do. But I've learned that it's not a terrible place to be. And in fact, I don't want to change places with those people who are overwhelmingly busy and can't get a hold to be quiet at all. It forced me to sit with myself and learn that I need those quiet times. I'd been avoiding them but I've been avoiding myself.
Right. So now you lean into them.
Yes, I do. I'm aware that I really need to have quiet time.
And where do you see yourself 10 years from now then?
That was a really hard question. I never thought I would see 40.
Yeah.
So to see 60 is a grace. 67, where I am now, I'm starting to become aware my grandparents, most of them did not live as old as I am.
Right.
So 10 years from now, I have 5 wonderful grandchildren. I never thought I would see my children grown. And I now have 5 grandchildren. I'm very, very lucky. My kids are in a good place. They have spouses who love them and they love them. And so 10 years from now, my grandchildren will be pretty adult. The oldest is 13 now. So she'll be an adult. I will be really lucky. I will feel very lucky to see the adults that they will become.
All right, let's change track here a little bit and come to the quick round of questions. What are you reading? What are you watching? What are you binging? What are you doing to amuse yourself?
I read much more than I watch. We have fallen in love, of course, with the All Creatures Great and Small, that I've read all those books. So we've been watching that. I for entertainment, enjoy mysteries. I like probably cozy mysteries is what they're called. And whether Sue Grafton, the Kinsey Milhone, they're timeless. And what we do for fun is taking walks.
Yes.
Yes, I've written books about them, but that is what we do for fun. And that's what really lifts my heart. It's pretty simple stuff.
Are you volunteering in the community or doing anything to give back these days?
I am a compulsive volunteer. Pandemic has made that very hard. My mother was a professional volunteer. She volunteered, never got paid work her entire life. Her life was volunteering. So I have that as a role model. Yes, I have volunteered at church. I have volunteered in the community. I'm on the Bellingham Historical Commission. There's what is called a National Heritage Corridor right in the 2-state area right where I live, the Blackstone River Valley. And it does historical and outdoor cultural things. And I have been a volunteer with them for a number of years.
Nice.
Pandemic has made volunteering very difficult for me, but I've still done what I can. And probably the Historical Commission is what I'm doing most actively right now.
Yeah. Is there an app you couldn't live without?
I being as older as I am, I have embraced technology very slowly, and I barely can still figure out how to add new contacts into my phone. God bless it. But I do now appreciate having a calendar that when I'm talking on the phone with somebody, I can actually check, or if they email me, I don't have to come up to my desktop. So, because I was always having to make commitments until I could get back to my office and see, because I can't keep track of calendar dates. So I actually have it all on my phone, and it sounds a little odd, but just having my calendar more accessible is really helpful.
Yeah.
So that makes a difference.
You surprised me though. I thought for sure you were going to tell me some walking app.
No. I do have friends who use All Trails, and a lot of times when you're walking, cell phone reception isn't great.
Yes.
And if you're depending on that to get you someplace, you may get in trouble.
Yeah, that's true.
And also I walk such short trails that I don't typically go places. I don't hike alone. So that's the first thing. And my husband is a long-time hiker, and he will use some apps to trace things, and I leave that up to him. I'm kind of a go along, and I don't have to be in charge of it all.
Good for you. I'm the same way with my hikes. I'm like, where are we going? in that direction. Is there an over 50s life hack that you would like to share with our audience?
It's easy to fool yourself that being busy means you're important. Even though you don't think that's what it means, be willing to slow down, pay attention to what's around you, make the effort to keep in touch with old friends. So you need to be willing to make new friends too. Don't just cling to those old, comfortable friends because they might not be there.
That's wonderful advice. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you'd like to share?
Oh, golly. Make time for joy. Don't get so caught up in all the have-tos that you miss out on celebrating when you've accomplished even small things. Make time for joy. Stop and be aware that it isn't just the big things that need celebrating. Because if you only see, now we have to do this, now we have to do that, you only see that have-to list, you forget the things that you have done that can make a difference, and you need to celebrate that.
This has been 50 Women Over 50, a podcast for women whose personal confidence is born of experience. I want to thank my guest, author Marjorie Turner Hollman, for joining me today. I appreciate all the wisdom she shared with me on the show, especially about the power dynamic between those that need help and those who provide it. For me, this was a new perspective about giving and taking, but now, thinking about it, I'm convinced she's 100% right. Both parties actually have equal power in this dynamic. I invite you to see the show notes to find out more about Marjorie and her books and her other activities. I've included links so that you can connect with her online and find her books and other resources and items that we discussed today. Join me for next week's show when I will welcome Sharon Jones, a woman with whom I have a lot in common, I discovered. She's divided her adult life between Canada and Great Britain, just like me. She's had a successful agency career, just like me. And she has learned many of the same hard lessons that I have throughout her career. She's put many of these into a book called Tread Gently for the Emotionally Clumsy. But that's next week. In the meantime, please drop me a rating or a review on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's connect and create a whole community of wise women over 50 by sharing a link to the show with your friends and connections. See you next time on 50 Women Over 50. I'm your host, Sherrilynne Starkie.